Hello everyone. On this next proof, again, we're trying to prove that two lines are parallel. When you're trying to prove that two lines are parallel to each other, we immediately know that we're going to be doing the converse theorem to prove lines are parallel. And so we're going to look above it to see what kind of angles those are. But let's also go with our givens. L is parallel to M is a given. Those are some free points. What else is given? We're also given that 7 and 1 are congruent. So find that in the proof. Ooh, they give it to us right here. So angle 7 is congruent to angle 1. I immediately know what to write there without even thinking too hard about it. That is a given, okay? And so 7 and 1 are congruent. They tell us that from the beginning. That's from our given. So if L is parallel to M, here's L, here's M. Y'all gotta hold on, gotta do that this way. L is parallel to M. It's easier when I write it that way, which just means that those will never ever cross. So I'm going to put some triangles on them to mark that. And then from L and M being parallel, they say, hey, what that means is that 5 has to be congruent to 7. Well, that's because those are corresponding angles. It's our corresponding angles theorem. Both of those are in the top right corner, so those must be congruent. But watch what they do. Now they say, hey, 5 is congruent to 7, and 7 is congruent to 1, to all of a sudden transitioning out that middleman. So think about it like sports. 5 passes the ball to 7, 7 passes the ball to 1. Well, where do we start and where do we end? Angle 5 is going to be congruent to angle 1 because we transition out that middleman. What is that called? That is called our transitive property of congruence. We transitioned out this middleman. So we got rid of angle 7 in the middle. And so if 5 and 1 are congruent, why are A and B parallel? That is going to be because those are corresponding angles. So it's going to be the converse of what? Converse of corresponding angles theorem. If 5 and 1 are congruent, then those are corresponding angles, which boom, parallel. That makes the lines parallel. Not an easy thing to do, my friends. All right, here's our givens on the next one. A is parallel to B. It says that's a given. A and B are parallel. Okay, that is going to be a given. Not angle A. Line A is parallel to line B. That's a given. What else do they give us? That C is parallel to D. So let's write that right here. They tell us that that is a given as well. C is parallel to D. So there's a given, and then there's a given. Free points right there. And then under line A is parallel to B, they give us some information about line A and B. They tell us, okay, if those are parallel, then 1 must be congruent to 8. Well, what is the reason for that? What kind of angles are those around these parallel lines? Those are going to be alternate exteriors. It's going to be our alternate exterior angles theorem. Then they give us some information about 8 and 16 from those pink lines. Those pink lines are line C. It's hard when I do it that way. And line D. Those are also going to be parallel. So let me mark those. 1, 2, 1, 2. Those are parallel. And so what kind of angles are 8 and 16 around those? Those are going to be our corresponding angles. Those are congruent because those are our corresponding angles. So our corresponding angles theorem allows those to be congruent since those lines are parallel. Okay, now watch the flow of this. Ready? 1 is congruent to 8, middleman. And 8 is congruent to 16. So transition out your middleman. What do we know is congruent? Angle 1 is congruent to 16. So think about it like sports. 1 passes the ball to 8. Player 8 passes the ball to 16. So ultimately, 1 gets the ball to 16 through player 8. That is called our transitive property. We transition out that middleman. That is our transitive property of congruence. How do I know it's congruence and not equality? Because I'm working with that congruence symbol. And that is ultimately what we wanted to prove, is that 1 is congruent to 16. Last but not least, one of the hardest problems on here, the first thing I notice is that we have parallel markings on these lines. If those are parallel, the first thing you want to do to make sense of this alphabet soup is find the variables that are the same. So I have 9x plus 12 here in this obtuse angle. And then I have 3x in this acute angle. And then I have 4y minus 10 in this obtuse angle. And so find the ones that are both x's. Obviously, 9x plus 12 is obtuse, 4y minus 10 is obtuse, so I can set those equal because a big is equal to a big. But if I did that, I wouldn't be able to solve for either variable because I have 2. So I need to figure out what can I do with my x's. Well, if this is, since these lines are parallel, if this is 3x, top right corner, that means that this top right corner is also going to be 3x. So I get to copy that there. So copy that right above. Well, what do I know about those two? 9x plus 12 and 3x. Well, one is big and one is small. So what should they add up to? Those make a linear pair. Those are a linear pair together, which means that they add up to 180 degrees. So those should add up to 180. And so we have 12x equals 168. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the div po, and I'm going to do 168 divided by 12. That gives me 14 for x. So this is our two-part. We need to find the two things that are true. So x is 14. How do I solve for y? Well, you can plug it into any expression that has an x in it. I'm going to plug it into the pink because the first thing I notice is that the green is obtuse. So I want to know, well, what is 4y minus 10 as a whole? Well, the way that you do that is you can go, okay, well, that means that this is 9 times 14 plus 12. What is 9 times 14 plus 12? That gives me 138 degrees here. Well, if that's 138 degrees, I can set 4y minus 10 equal to it. This is not the only way to do it. There are multiple ways to do this problem, but 4y equals 148, so you divide by 4 on both sides, and you end up getting y equals 37. So x equals 14, which then allows you to solve for y, where y is equal to 37. I hope you have a fabulous day. Thank you for listening to these videos. I really appreciate you.